But it's not uncommon for somebody to not respond to a subpoena and not come to court. I've worked both sides of the street now. I've been a defense attorney. I've represented persons charged with domestic violence. As a prosecutor, I have worked with the victims of domestic violence. And the way that this was handled, in my opinion, was just a very, very poor showing by the court in Florida. But here you're dealing with somebody that is pretty fragile. And what does she take away from all this? Well, I got the courage, I pressed the charges, I called the cops, or I went to the magistrate's office. I went probably a few steps further than I ever have, but because of that, I went to jail. What's going to happen? Well, she's not going to call the police again. She's not going to go to the magistrate's office again. She's going to continue to take that abuse. And we're lucky if she doesn't end up the victim of a very, very serious assault that is life-threatening, life-changing, or perhaps even a homicide victim one day. What you see in a dynamic of domestic violence is the grab for power by the offender. And I don't mean to sound sexist, but I mean the reality is a substantial majority of the times the offenders are male and the victims are female. And when these things play out, the victim is often very scared to come to court. She's scared of the repercussions. She knows the defendant is not going to go to prison for the rest of his life. If it's a misdemeanor, it's going to be a fairly short sentence. In the meantime, she may have other factors that bother her, the child custody, the ability to make the payments necessarily to sustain the family, pressure by peers or family members of the defendant. And when you do this, you essentially extend the victimization by putting her in jail. You have to develop that strategy for a victimless prosecution at the time you are investigating the incident. And if you deal with it appropriately, you will find there are a large number of cases that you can go forward and prosecute even if the victim never shows up in the courtroom. One of the things we are doing now in an effort to develop evidence-based prosecutions is we're training our officers that when they come on the scene, they need to interview the victim, but they also need to assume she is not coming to court. The time to get the evidence necessary to prosecute a case without the victim testifying is right then. So if this had happened in High Point, if the police had been called, then they would have interviewed the defendant and found out what his story was. They would have taken pictures of the victim. They would have taken pictures of the scene. They would have talked to neighbors. They would have checked out cell phone calls. They would have asked for consent to search the house for firearms or things of that sort that might be relevant to a domestic case. They would have probably asked for consent for portable breath tests, things of this sort, anything that might be an evidence-based factor that could be used to prosecute that case. You know, we're making a difference, and we're very pleased with how far we've come. We've got a long ways to go. I mean, I wish I could tell you that we've got it all figured out and that we've got it stopped. But what I always say, and I don't mean to sound Pollyanna, is that the big victory here is 20 years from now. These people who are involved in domestic violence scenarios where the victims are defendants, more often than not, have watched this while they were growing up. They've watched fathers meet mothers. Daughters have watched mothers receive the violence and stay in the house. And as a child in your formative years, you're led to believe this is okay. So they grow up believing this is okay. We're trying to retrain and re-educate some of these folks now, both victims and defendants, and make them understand that society doesn't accept this. You know, maybe after 5 or 6 times when she was assaulted, she finally goes to the magistrate's office, but then doesn't dig down and find the courage to go to court. Maybe that happens once or twice. You get frustrated. You're not getting a result. You put effort in this. You're seeing this person go unpunished. Their life is not being disrupted. It's business as usual. But eventually, you know, the crescendo process is going to kick in, and, you know, she's going to get there, and she's going to have the courage. She's going to get enough, and then she's going to make that next step and come to court. And you kind of sometimes, it's not comfortable. We kind of sit there and watch it play out. But I'm a firm believer that by putting her in jail for not coming to court, you've done a lot more harm than good.